There's nothing like snook hook sets at dawn or catching a tarpon in the moonlight. Find your next fishing trip made easy on fishingbooker.com and experience the magic of the Sunshine State or any other destination on your fishing bucket list. Book a blue water adventure in search of sailfish or go snapper fishing with the kids. With over 6,000 captains and trips to choose from, planning your next one just got a whole lot easier. Download the Fishing Booker app on the Google Play or App Store, or visit them online at fishingbooker.com to book your trip today. I'm sure a lot of you guys remember the old ceremonial hunting tradition of eating the heart out of the first animal you kill. Meat from those organs are among the most nutrient-rich foods on the planet. You can get those same benefits your ancestors craved via convenient daily capsules from Heart and Soil. Find out more at heartandsoil.co. And remember, use code MeatEater for 10% off your purchase.
Welcome to the Wired to Hunt podcast, your home for deer hunting news, stories, and strategies. And now, your host, Mark Kenyon.
Welcome to the Wired to Hunt podcast. I'm your host, Mark Kenyon, and this is episode number 400. And today I'm joined by my buddy Josh Hillyard for some New Year's resolutions and end-of-year reflections. And we're also going to get into some late-season firearm considerations with Luke Thorkildsen. All right, welcome to the Wired to Hunt podcast, brought to you by Onyx. It is New Year's Eve when this episode is dropping, so first and foremost, Happy New Year's. Hope you guys have got some fun plans in store for today, or if you're listening to this later, I hope you did have a good time. What I want to do today is kind of have a two-parter. We've got my buddy Furter, Josh Furter Hillyard, on the line here momentarily because we started the hunting season with Josh. The very first episode of my 2020 hunting season was with Josh, talking about our upcoming hunt and some of our hopes and dreams for the year. So it seemed appropriate to end it with him as well. We're going to wrap up the year, talk about some of our highs, some of our lows, our toughest moments, our most proud moments. Josh is going to walk you through his season, which he hasn't shared yet here on the podcast this year. So you're going to get to hear some cool stories there. I had an amazing, really cool experience with my son the other night. Took him on his first track job for a deer, so I want to tell you guys about that story. So that's part one. We're going to wrap up the year with some stories and some reflection on despite a lot of challenges in 2020, at least Josh and I are able to find some silver linings with our hunting season that we wanted to talk you through. And then secondly, to wrap it up, slightly different take, but this is that time of year when a lot of us, Josh and I included, are out there trying to kill does with our guns. There's a lot of people with late firearm seasons, late antlerless firearm seasons, stuff like that. And I personally have not done a good enough job talking through firearm gear, firearm practice, firearm maintenance, that kind of stuff that's especially important come this time of year when the weather can get things kind of wonky. So I pulled in who I think is going to be a great resource to talk about this. His name is Luke Thorkildsen. He works at Weatherby, and he's going to walk us through a bunch of things to be thinking about when you're out there using a gun in cold, nasty weather. So how to make sure we're not surprised by any weird malfunctions because of the weather. How to take care of your gun immediately after coming in off of a nasty snowy hunt in January or December. What to do when you're done for the season and putting away that gun to make sure that it stays in good working order and is ready to rock and roll when you pick it back up next year. So that's what we're going to cover in part two. It's a far-ranging conversation across those two, but I think we'll give you a couple laughs and a couple helpful pieces of information to close out your year. And the final thing I'll say is this is episode 400. 400. It's pretty wild that this podcast has been going on for that long, for that many episodes. And the only reason that's the case is because all of you have tuned in and listened and supported this show and supported me and what we're trying to do. And I want you to know that I don't take that for granted. I really appreciate that. I appreciate your time, your attention, your interest. And I can also tell you that I am ready to take it to another level this coming year. 2021 is going to be a really big one for Wired to Hunt. We've got some new things in store. We've got, we just got a lot of cool stuff coming up, and we are really going to try to take what we've built here with Wired to Hunt and scale it so that we're able to help more people, introduce more people to hunting, help more current hunters take their hunting to the next level, and do it in a way that's a whole lot of fun too. So stay tuned. It's going to be a great year. We're all going to grow together. We're going to have fun together, and sure as hell hope we're going to kill some deer too. And with that, we'll wrap it up, send it to my conversation with Furter, and then soon after that, you'll hear from Luke. All right, man. Josh, thank you. Thank you for being here for this one. It seemed appropriate that you should be here for this podcast because something like 4 months ago, you and I recorded our first podcast of the 2020 deer hunting season in, the first couple days of September. And now it's the very last episode of the 2020 season. When this episode is airing, Josh, is actually New Year's Eve. So this is the New Year's Eve podcast that we're doing. So it seemed fitting that Furter be here at the beginning and the end.
Well, hey, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. I can't believe that was 4 months ago already that we were out in Idaho.
It's crazy, right? It's been a wild ride. I'll tell you what, looking back on that first week of the season, I was just thinking about this a little bit ago. Even though during that hunt we were both a little frustrated with how the hunting was going at times, that was a damn good trip.
Oh, that was a lot of fun. I was just looking back at pictures of fishing and some of the hunting, some of the pictures we took. It was a lot of fun. We had a great time.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind being back there right now.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's beautiful with the snow. I was thinking back on that episode, and it got me thinking a lot about, I guess, between that episode and then what naturally happens at this time of year, which is, it's New Year's Eve. We're thinking about the new year. It seemed like this would be a good chance to do some reflecting back on the season, on some things we learned, on, some things that were memorable. And I haven't gotten to have you on the show. I don't think you've been on the show since that trip. So figured we should hear a little bit about your season.
Yeah.
So that said, do you remember that first one we did at the very beginning of the trip? It was, I called it the 10 steps to the best season of your life. Do you remember that?
Yep. I remember that.
So here's the quiz, and this is going to be a test of how well you pay attention. Do you remember any of the steps that were listed in that episode?
Oh man. Probably one about like having a positive mindset and trying to overcome adversity, because you're going to face that at some point during the year. That's got to be one.
Okay, I'll give you credit for that.
But no.
Okay.
Oh man, there's been a lot that's happened between now and then. I remember our conversation, a lot of things we talked about, but I couldn't tell you the 10 things or whatever.
Yeah, that's fair. I was going to ask you if you could remember any of them, if you could remember any of those things that ended up actually helping you in 2020. Do you think that anything that we talked about in that episode actually helped you over the course of the season?
Yeah, I'm sure they did. I'm sure they did. Probably not even thinking about them at the time, but I'm just ingrained in me that they probably did help me. Just kind of thinking about back how my season went. It was starting off really slow and just keeping at it and trying to stay positive. I think definitely helped me to where I'm at right now with how I'm feeling about my season.
How do you feel about your season?
Oh man, I'm feeling pretty good. I'm feeling pretty darn good about it at this point. So, I didn't think I'd be saying that a couple of weeks ago. Just how things had gone up to that point, but things sure have changed in a short amount of time.
That's hunting in a nutshell right there, isn't it? It all can change in just a matter of seconds. And so can you keep at it and stay focused and stay positive till that does? It's one of the toughest things to do every year. That's for sure.
Yep, for sure.
Well, let's just talk about that. Let's hear the story of the season. It started off with a lot of optimism and excitement with our Idaho trip. And that first night you saw like 200 deer and like 19 different shooter bucks or something, and you're like, oh, this is going to be a piece of cake. I'm 99% sure I'm going to shoot a booner tomorrow.
Yeah, you set me up for failure. I think that podcast you recorded, because the one thing I do remember from that podcast is you giving, hey, how confident are you tomorrow that you're going to kill that buck? And I gave some stupid number. That's the one thing I could change about my season. That might be it, going back and putting a much lower number on that, because I think that jinxed us then for the rest of that trip.
Yeah, things got interesting after that.
Yeah. But no, a lot of optimism. Saw a ton of deer that first night. Had like a borderline shooter in range. I saw like 20 different bucks or something like that. And it was a wild night. And then just kind of steadily headed down after that.
Yeah, we had our challenges. We didn't end up filling our tags on that trip, which we recounted in the podcast we did at the end of it, which I think was something about like the trials and tribulations of public land deer hunting. I think that's what I called it. Fun trip, but it ended up being tough. And then what? It was Michigan from there on out for you, right?
Yeah. I just hunted Michigan then the rest of the season. So we had a few weeks when we got back there from Idaho to kind of regroup and lick our wounds and kind of get in the right mindset for a Michigan season. And honestly, things just were slow here for me. All of October, I didn't have very many encounters at all. Early season, spent some time doing some of our field to fork hunts and got out with some new hunters and didn't really focus too much on myself early in the season. And I'm sure that kind of cut into some of my personal hunting time, but started to get to mid to late October and started to be in the woods more and just nothing was happening. Seeing some does and seeing some young bucks and passed a couple of different 2.5 year olds that were nice deer, but just weren't quite what I was looking for. And October was a little rough in terms of just overall sightings seemed to be down too from what I'd been seeing at the primary spot I hunt. How
did the field to fork ones go? The field to fork mentored hunts. Did you do one of those, two of those? How many was it this year? We ended up just doing one. We canceled one of them because of COVID. Just weren't able to do it with like some of the lodging things that we were hoping we could do. So we just did the one event at the beginning of October, and that went really well. We got one of the hunters in that program their first buck. So we did have a deer to kind of show some of the new hunters how to field dress the animal, and we skinned it out and quartered it there for people to see how to do that and just try to make them more comfortable with that whole experience. And so that was great. No, that was a really good event. And I wish we could have done more this year for sure. Yeah. Do you think, have you heard from anyone coming out of that? Did anyone keep going out on their own, keep trying?
Yeah. Actually I got a text from one of the participants. I think it was like the second day of gun season. I got a text from him with a picture of a doe that he shot and said, "Hey, went out and got it done all by myself.
Nice.
Thanks for all the help." So that was cool to get that text and know that he stuck with it. And we gave him at least a little bit of at least a little help and giving him the confidence to get out there by himself. And he made it happen. And I've been talking with the guy I hunted with, and we're trying to get him out here. Hopefully by the time this airs, we'll have a deer down for him, or at least get him out another time. So
nice.
Still trying to make that happen.
Where are you going to take him?
To be determined. Got a couple leads on some places we may be able to get him to go have an opportunity at hopefully a doe on private land where we can still use a gun here in the late season.
Well, we should talk. We should talk off air and maybe see if we can work the schedules out so you could bring him down to my other Michigan spot.
Okay.
I think
let's talk.
I think we could try to get him done. Get him one. I was going to try to get Dan out here again too and get him another shot.
Oh, cool. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So as you know, Dan, or as you know, Josh, our mutual friend now, Dan Jajo, he did the field to fork hunt last year that both you and I were at, which is where we met him. And that's what led me to inviting him out to the back 40 this year. And he did all that work this summer and then came out for the hunt opening weekend of gun season. And and then ended up, he got a shot at a buck but missed, and that was, an exciting experience, but of course a letdown. So
Yep.
I'll tell you what, I've been super just impressed with him though, because he's been still getting after it, trying hard, still, giving it a shot, and we're going to try to link up after Christmas and,
Awesome.
and get him another chance. So yeah, maybe we can
that's awesome.
time all that to get your guy out there too.
Yeah, no, that'd be great. That'd be great.
It's been really cool to see examples like that, where these people have an interest and then get that chance to take the next step. It just seems like every time I've seen it where they get to go out with somebody and have that little extra guidance, especially if the shot's taken and they get to see what to do after that, or how to gut or how to butcher a deer. It just makes such a big difference. Which, as you know, which is why we're so gung-ho about the Field to Fort program and everything that the National Deer Association and you guys are trying to do, which is ultimately why we decided to do what we're doing with the Back 40. So I just don't think that, doing the stuff that you and I do and that everyone listens does, which is get to deer hunt a lot and have a great time with it and have it be a part of your life. We're just not going to be able to have that around if hunting numbers continue to plummet. And we've got to find ways to get new folks out there and introduce people to this and make sure that they have the opportunity to see what a great thing this can be, what a great lifestyle this can be, what a great activity this can be, what a great way to feed your family this can be. And the Field to Fort program, it's doing that better than anything I've seen. So
yeah, no, and hey man, can't thank you guys at Meteor enough for the donation, and we're definitely going to make sure we put it to good use and try to introduce as many new people as we can. It takes places like that to be able to have the resources and places to introduce new people, and man, we're thrilled. So thank you guys.
Well, yeah, you're welcome to everyone at the organization, and out of conversations that we've had, both yourself and Nick and Matt and everyone from the National Deer Association, I've heard from you guys that one of the challenges has always been like finding good places to do these events. Right, you can do public land, and that's great, but it's not nearly as guaranteed of a good opportunity to see deer, actually get a shot at deer, as opposed to a private piece that's managed and set up nicely for new hunters. Yeah. So, when we were thinking about what are we going to do with this thing, it just seemed like it would be a shame to have this piece of property and then do everything we're trying to do and then have it turn into condos or someone building a housing complex on it or something. So, when we originally purchased the property, we knew we're going to give it away. We're not going to keep this thing for us forever. We're going to use it to educate and help new people. We're going to tell this story. We're going to improve it as much as we can. And then we're going to pass it on to someone in some way. And, and I guess I want to provide a little more context here because, after we announced the plan earlier this month, explaining what we were doing, I got a decent, not a ton, but a handful of comments where people felt upset or misled that we weren't doing like a sweepstakes. Some people thought that we were doing a sweepstakes where, a listener or a fan was going to win the property. And so I want to make it clear to people that that was never our intention to mislead people into thinking that was the case. What we were doing was, from the beginning, we wanted to announce two things. Number one, we announced we were doing the hunt giveaway. That was a sweepstakes. So we were giving away a hunt with me and Steve on the property. So that was the competition, not the competition, but that was the giveaway sign up that people gave us their email and their information for. And Dane Acevedo won that, and he came out and hunted with us in November this year. There was never a sweepstakes thing for the property. We did say that we were giving the property away, but we just simply couldn't provide all the details at that point when we announced everything because it is a long process to figure out exactly how to be able to give this to an organization and how to have a plan in place to make sure that the right things are done with it. Like that took a long time, a lot of process there. So, we shared as soon as we could share the plan. And it's a plan that I think is really, really good for the larger hunting community. It's good for everyone. It's good for new hunters. It's good for the future of this thing, because now this property is not going to be used just by me and a couple friends, or me and my dad, or whoever. It's not going to be used just by Steve and Giannis. It's going to be something that, through the stewardship of the National Deer Association, is going to open the doors to this property to many new hunters. And not just to hunt, but actually to come out there in the spring and learn about deer and learn about habitat, and to come out in August and do some work and learn about habitat management and native prairies and wetland species and all this kind of stuff that's hard to learn about unless you've got a great classroom. Well, the Back 40 can be that great classroom for dozens and dozens and dozens of people. And then actually take some people out for hunts too. And it's just something that we're really excited about, because it's going to let the mission of the Back 40 continue on. It's not just a 2-year thing. Now this is something that, people can benefit from this thing for a long time. And I don't know, I'm just genuinely thrilled and really confident that this is the right thing to do. And a lot of people are going to benefit from it. And we're also really excited. I don't know if you know this, Josh. I think you know this. But we've put a plan in place to continue documenting the property in some different ways next year. And we're actually going to have an opportunity for people to sign up, I don't know if sign up's the right word. The official legal documentation will be announced sometime in 2021. So don't quote me on this, because we're still getting all that fine print figured out. But in generalities, what we're basically going to do is have an opportunity for people that are part of the MeatEater community, listeners of the podcast and everything. You'll be able to sign up to possibly win a chance to come and be a part of one of these mentorship events next year. So we're going to give away the chance for someone to come to the property. I think we're trying to have it be like a winner and a guest, maybe. That's still being sorted out. But a winner and a guest or something like that is going to be able to come out to the property with us. We're going to do a series of educational events, and then an opportunity to come out in the fall and have a mentored hunt out here, just like what Dan got to experience and what Dane, the hunt winner, got to experience. We're going to do something like that for somebody else, as well as a bunch of other people probably that will just be here as part of the local Field to Fork programs that you guys put on. So again, we want to share this place. We want people to get a chance to learn from and experience it. And that's a long-winded way of me saying I'm really excited. So good stuff ahead for the Back 40, and hopefully good things for a lot of new hunters too.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to seeing where all this goes, and like you said, being able to showcase it and let other people see it and show what we can do on it, and get some new people out there. So yeah, we're super excited and just really looking forward to seeing where this all goes.
Yeah, it's good stuff, man. So back to your season though.
Yep.
Your early season was kind of taken over with planning and executing on your Field to Fork hunt, and then October goes along and you're hunting some public land, I remember, and then you're also hunting your main spot. Yep.
So hunting some public land. I've had a antlerless tag here for the unit I'm in, the DMU, for public land for a number of years, and I just have never filled it. I spend a lot of time in the early season, trying to maybe get on trying to pattern a buck or something at some of my primary spots, and just get caught up in that and just don't spend as much time trying to fill that tag as I should, and decided I was going to try to give a couple of good hunts early in the year to try to fill that tag, and had one night where I'd set up and had 2 does come out of this swamp and into this point of timber, and man, I needed her to take like one more step. And this little peninsula, there was a ladder stand at in it. Like last year, there's a ladder stand at the end of this point, and I swear she came into that little patch of timber there and was starting to look straight up in the trees, and I was maybe 20 yards maybe down from that, and they just knew something was up. And I needed about one more step and would have had a 10, 15 yard shot, something like that. And they buggered out of there, and that was that. I didn't have another encounter in that spot. I tried going back there maybe once or twice more, but nothing happened. So close, but no cigar there. And that was, I guess, maybe towards the end of October when that encounter happened. And then I really shift focus to trying to get on a good buck down at my primary spot that I hunt of private land.
So it's a 40-acre spot, right? Your
Yep,
main,
it's a little 40-acre spot. Yep.
Your main chunk. Give me the cliff notes. What are the high notes there as far as like the memorable things that happened? Because it seemed like it was a little tougher this year than previous years. What was the story there? What are the highlights?
Yeah, I mean, the memorable stuff was that there was not very much memorable stuff, which is different than the year before. I'd seen quite a bit of mature buck activity on that farm early and often. Like first night I ever hunted it, I had a shooter buck at 25 yards, but he was behind some thick stuff and walked straight away from me. I never had a good opportunity, and it was just like, it seemed like every time I was out there, something was happening, or at least there was, some excitement. And this year was, I saw a lot of does, some young bucks. But man, there wasn't hardly any sign in the woods up there. It was just very interesting. I was running trail cameras, wasn't getting much on. I had a bunch of pictures like early, like late August, early September, and then just really kind of shut off. So I don't know what was going on out there. But it was like that really all the way through, even the first couple of weeks of November. The first mature buck I saw out there was, November 13th. I remember it was Friday the 13th. And kind of mumbled up an opportunity and just, spooked that deer. And that was that. So I was, 2 days away from gun season. That was really the only good encounter I had the entire, first 13 days of November. And I'd been out quite a bit. Again, some young bucks and past, I think what would be a good deer next year. Saw one shooter like way off, like a couple hundred yards, like two neighbors' properties over that I could see in a field. But man, yeah, it was a weird year out there. Just not much happening.
All right. I want to cover for both you and I two things: toughest moment of your season and the best moment of your season. I'll answer mine first and explain that, and then I'll let you share whatever you want from yours. And I think I know where your highest moment is, so I'm setting you up here to share your high moment. But my toughest moment would have been right around the same time when you just described your Friday the 13th encounter. I think mine was Thursday the 12th, which was the much discussed miss of Tran. When I had been grinding it out all season and having all these close calls, couldn't get a shot, and then I finally have him coming into range. He gets into that thick cover, and I felt this pressure to force a shot, and I made a stupid mistake and took a shot I just shouldn't have, and I missed him. That was definitely my low point of the season, I think. Without a question, that was my low point of the season. But I will tell you, it did give me a chance to practice what I preach, which I discussed in episode, whatever it was, when we did the 10 steps to the best season of your life. I had to execute on one of those things, which was, control what you can and relax on what you can't. And so in that moment, I remember it was really shitty and I was very upset after it. And then later that day, I said, all right, man, it happened. Like, you can't control that anymore. So there's no point like kicking yourself about it or hating yourself for it or stressing about it anymore. It happened. All you can do is figure out where to go from here. And so I'm pretty proud of myself for turning that around pretty quick. And I kept at it and was able to turn things around later in the year. If I look back on my season and try to think about what my highest points were, I've got three of them. One was when I ended up killing Tran 10 days later. So that was an obvious high point, culmination of 3 years. And, it actually, well, I guess it wasn't the next hunt, but it was definitely a clear outcome of being able to turn around and keep at it and adapt and push on. So I was happy about how that all came together. But then the other two high points were related to, you know what? I've got another low point. I would say that another low point, maybe even worse, honestly, now that I think about it. the Tran miss was a major low point, but I probably felt even crappier when Dan missed his deer when I was mentoring him. I felt so horrible about that whole situation, about, just especially because I thought after the shot, I swear I saw him go down once he got into the timber. And I even looking back on the footage, you can see he gets in the timber and then it looks like he falls down. And that was the thing I remember seeing in my binos. But it almost looks like there's like a big berm. He went over a berm and underneath it, and it almost looks like he does like trip and fall. But obviously, after everything, no blood, no nothing, it was not. But I feel the worst about the fact that after the shot, he kept saying, like, I'm nervous about the shot. I'm not sure about the shot. And I was like, you got him. And I was so pumped, and I was trying to get him excited. And like, I was so thrilled for him, and I was hyping him up, and then ended up getting his hopes up. So when it all came down the way it did, I just felt super bad. And just, I didn't want that to be something that would detract from him wanting to keep doing it, Like when you're mentoring someone like that, and even before the hunt, one of the things he was most worried about was like, gosh, I just want to make sure I get a good shot. I don't want to wound something. I don't want to miss something. And then his greatest fear ends up, happening. He misses a deer. My greatest fear was like, I don't want this thing to happen and then it turn him away from wanting to hunt again in the future. I don't want him to have such a negative experience that he won't keep trying. So that was a low point. But fast forward to what then I'm talking about the things I'm excited about and proud about. I was proud about me getting the shot at Tran, but then back to helping someone else out. Super, super high point of the year was getting to help my dad get his first deer with a crossbow.
That was awesome.
That was such a great experience and such a great memory for us. And just seeing how excited he was for that deer. I love getting to watch that video now. I can like relive that, and then my son really likes watching. He always wants to see Grandpa's buck, so we watch that video. And I love when my dad's like, and you know how dad is with like points. He's like, oh yeah, that's a nice 6-pointer, right, Mark? That's a nice 6-pointer. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, Dad, that's a great 6-pointer. Dad being dad, and he was so excited the whole way, and me too. And man, having that come together.
That picture you guys have that was at the end of the episode, and I've seen both of you guys with that deer. That's such an awesome picture. That should be in a frame in both of your guys' houses. That's a great memory.
Yeah, I agree. It's a life lister right there. Which brings me to the final high point, which just happened last night, which is last night I killed a doe. And so last night, when people listening to this would be about 2 weeks ago, but I killed a doe, and I was able to track her and find her pretty close. And it was a situation where it was early enough that I could get my son, Everett, who's 2, and take him out to go and try to recover it for himself. So I went and got Everett, brought him out. It was just a good situation. We didn't have to go too far. And it was the coolest thing, man. He, as you know, he's like super amped on everything hunting. He wants to watch all the hunting every night. Like, he doesn't want to watch Sesame Street or Mickey Mouse or something. He wants to watch Chasing November or Back 40 or some deer hunting show. And then he will, like, every day, his main thing is he's hunting. He's got 2 fake guns, and he's got a fake bow and arrow, and he's constantly playing out different hunting scenes, like all day. He's this kind of thing he's doing. So he finally got to go out on his first real track job, and we got him out there, and he was like super excited. As soon as I got out of the UTV, I turned on the flashlight, got a headlamp on him, and first thing he says, Dad, where's the blood? And so I get him on the trail, and then right away, like, he starts seeing it, and he's like, look, there's more. And he is honestly better at tracking blood than I am, dude.
Well, I mean, that's not too hard to. You don't have the bar set very high on a blood track.
Yes, I know. Admittedly, he's not colorblind, so he's got that going for him, which I do not have going for me. But it got me really excited for future track jobs because he can see it so much better than me. Like, honestly, this 2-year-old was like, "There's some," and I wasn't seeing it. So we tracked the deer back to where I had left her, and And it was the first, dead deer he'd seen out in the woods. First time he's ever been like out walking around the woods after dark too, So there's a whole bunch of things. Like, is he going to be scared of the dark out here? Is he going to be scared of seeing this dead deer on the ground? And everything. He was just like a pro. He was just excited, wasn't scared. When he saw the deer, he was so excited, like yelling in excitement and then wanting to touch her and look at her. And then he's like, Dad, let's take the deer meat out. Can we take the deer meat out? So I wasn't going to gut the deer in front of him. I was worried like maybe that's too soon to do that. So my idea was to drag the deer, get the deer into the UTV, and then bring Everett back and then come out there myself later and gut her. But I couldn't lift her up into the Can-Am. She was just big deer, full of all the guts and stuff. I was like, I can't pick her up. Maybe I could have forced it, but I decided, you know what, I'm just going to gut her and make this easier. And so I had Everett sit up at the front of the deer, like up by the head, so he wouldn't see too much gory stuff. And the whole time he's like, Daddy, I want to see. Daddy, I want to see. Show me the deer meat, Daddy. Man. And so he sat up there, and then he kept standing up and trying to like walk towards the back and see what's going on. And he saw a little, but sure. At no point did he get like grossed out or worried. I kept saying, I was like, hey, if you don't like this, we can stop. I'll take you home. Yep. You let Daddy know if you're cold or anything. And that's the whole time he was just wanted to be a part of it, wanted to see, wanted to touch, wanted to help. He helped me drag it. He helped me, quote unquote, lift her up into the UTV and all that stuff. It was just,
oh, that's great.
It was the coolest thing. He was just so into it, and came home and had to show Mom the pictures, and he wanted a picture of him holding the deer's head like Daddy does with a buck. Yeah. So we did all that, and it's just oh man, it's got me so excited for the future with him.
That's fun.
Yeah.
That's fun.
It was great. And then we do this thing with Elf on the Shelf, that Christmas deal that a lot of people do.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so our elf's name is Eddie. And so this morning when Everett woke up, he has to go look for Eddie the elf in the morning. And he went into the living room, and then a blood trail began. And then he followed the blood. he followed the blood trail to the table where Eddie the elf was gutting a doe.
Oh, man.
So I had a little deer figurine flipped upside down and a fake knife taped to Eddie's hand, and he was working on the deer. And Everett came running. I was like, "Oh, look, Eddie's gutting a doe too."
Getting the deer meat.
Uh-huh.
Oh, that's great. That's great. That's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I was like ecstatic. I was really riding a high last night after all that. So those are my 3 highs. Some big ones there. So now it's your turn.
Yeah.
Lowest moment, highest moment.
All right, yeah. I mean, lowest moment would be a day after your lowest moment. I think I even texted you like in our group chat. I said, "Oh, don't worry, I'll screw up or something tomorrow to make you feel better," or something like that. just joking around. And sure enough, one of the first deer I see in the morning is a good buck, and just totally screwed that whole situation up. Just dumb. And so yeah, I stepped in and helped take some of the pain off you and put it all on me. And that was my lowest moment, that Friday the 13th. And are
you willing to can you describe it all how you screwed it up?
Yeah. I haven't said anything to anybody about this.
You don't need to.
So
you don't need to. We can cut this out. You don't need to. But if you want to,
I'd be happy to. It'd be a good therapeutic exercise, I think, here. But I had a very similar situation actually. Had a nice buck come in from an area where I didn't think he would come from, and I had to get kind of all twisted around and in my saddle to try to get a shot, and he was going through really the only good shooting lane that I had, and I just rushed a shot, and there was some brush in the way that I had not seen, and my arrow deflected off of it, and it deflected and missed behind him. The arrow ended up like behind a tree. I couldn't even see it from where I was set up. So had a pretty good deflection there, and that deer trotted off and looked back at me, and I just saw my season, trotting out of my life again, right? I mean, just up over the hill, and I thought that was that. Where we're at in Michigan, we don't get too many opportunities at at mature deer. They're few and far between, and
how was the process coping with that?
Oh my God, it was horrible because, of course, I had a miss last year too. So just like, I need to really kill a doe with my bow and just kind of get some of that confidence back. Because I'd be lying to you if I said I'm still not a little shaken with the whole bow and sitting in the backyard and shoot and feel super confident with it. And I just got to get that back. I don't know what's going on with me. So definitely some things to still work on here in the off season and try to get some of that confidence back. I don't know, but yeah, man. So I was just sitting there. I was planning on sitting all day, and this happened like first thing in the morning, like 15 minutes, 20 minutes after first light. And I was like, oh my God. So I just like had to sit there all morning. I was just replaying that over in my head again and again and again. And it was another slow morning. Saw a couple does and fawns after that. And I was like, you know what? I'm getting down. I'm going to go back to the truck. I'm going to regroup. I'm going to have some lunch, get my wits about me. And I went back out that afternoon and again, no luck. So I was just down. I think I hunted the morning that next day is the day before gun season. Actually, I don't even think I hunted that next morning. I think it's like, I'm just going to try to regroup and get mentally better. So gun opening day, gun season rolled around. Went back out to that general area again. Didn't see anything like the first 2 days of gun season. Just a couple spikes, couple does, and that area gets a lot of hunting pressure. And there was we had that really bad windstorm on the 15th.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
It was like yeah. It was dead that morning. Very few shots. I saw 2 trees come down. I was like, okay, I'm getting out of here. This one was like within 50 yards, and he was like, all right, this is probably not safe. So I hunted a couple hours that morning and then bailed, and then the next couple days is the same kind of story without the weather, just slow. Heard quite a few gunshots, but just nothing was really moving. Nothing was really getting pushed around, and man, I was just I remember it was the 18th. I was driving down to my spot. I'm running late. I had a bunch of work to get done that took me longer than I thought it would. And I'm driving down and I called you. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. I'm thinking about still hunting through these pines, this bedding area. It's a few days after gun season. They may be in there and I'm running late. I don't have time to go hang a set. Wind was wrong for this little ground blind that I wanted to sit. And without saying, you basically said you're an idiot. Don't do that. So I'll give you some credit for what happened, because I ended up just going to sit that ground blind, and the wind was supposed to be like kind of like a southwest, and it was definitely not southwest. It was south, and I could have got away with the southwest, but once I got in the blind, it had kind of switched up, and I was like, geez, this is terrible. I'm blowing like right into these pines, but
describe this setup a little bit more before you continue, because I think one question that a lot of people would have is, all right, you're hunting a 40-acre piece.
Yep.
And you've hunted a decent amount. Yep. And you talked about how there's a lot of hunting pressure all around. Yep. So a lot of people struggle in situations like that. So what I want to know is, how did you manage to put yourself in a position where, a week earlier you got a shot at a mature buck on a 40-acre piece surrounded by lots of hunters, and now on the 18th you're back in there again, and you're about to tell me something good's going to happen. What's the setup? Where'd you find a mature buck in this kind of situation on a little piece of property?
So a little piece of property. It's a really kind of an interesting spot. It's a little piece of property, and the house on the property is like back towards the back of the property of this 40 acres on top of this little ridge, and it falls off into this creek bottom. And so there's this 2-lane, basically their driveway that cuts all the way, kind of winds around all the way through this property. And it's just real open timber is really all it is, with some ridges and stuff, some little rolling hills in it, that breaks up the topography a little bit. But it's really just a big open woods with a bunch of hickories and a few oaks, and then in the what would that be, the northwest corner is this heavily well, I shouldn't say heavily, but it's about a 8 to 10 acre patch of like pines and conifers that the landowner planted, I don't know, 20, 30 years ago. Just real thick, nasty bedding stuff that I think a lot of the deer just pile into because it's the best security cover around. And really, that's where I focus the majority of my hunting is on the outskirts of that little chunk of pines. That seems to be where all the activity is. So I think it hadn't this general section has not, or this general property has not been hunted much in the past. So I think they're used to some human disturbance in there with, cars going in and out all the way through the property. The landowner walks their dog along the road and the lanes. I think they're used to a certain amount of human, presence. I just try to still be really careful and calculated about how I get in there and out of there and when I'm hunting it, because it can get blown up really quick just being a small little property like that.
Yeah, I mean, you have been careful. I remember a couple times during the rut, and like we're all on the group text exchanging text messages of where are you going, what are you doing?
Yeah,
and there were some days that you weren't even hunting on your best spot, and we're like, what are you doing, man? But the fact that there's really just one little core area that's your very best of the best, you've had to be careful.
And this early November was so weird with the weather. I mean, it was so hot. Relatively speaking, for like November, and we had so many days of the same like southwest winds that it's really difficult to hunt that property in that wind. Like this day, like if it was bow season, I probably would have not have gone down there to hunt that piece. But given that it was gun season, I was being a little bit more, I don't know, not as conservative as I would have been. I was just like, you know what? I need to be in there and hunting it. You never know during gun season who's pushing stuff around and what's happening, and throw caution to the wind a little bit. And I ended up.
Sorry, I was just going to add one more piece, which was I remember on that phone call you were pretty down and kind of frustrated with stuff, and you were talking about like just walking through the pines, still hunting it and stuff. And I think what I remember telling you was kind of what ended up helping me kill a deer later, which was, sometimes you just gotta, like, are there still does there? And you said, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, are you still seeing a lot of does moving through? And you said, yes. I'm like, okay, well then you haven't overpressured that chunk of cover too much yet then. And right now, these bucks could be all over the place. If you've got the does there, just keep hammering that best place until either a buck does come through or the does tell you that you've pressured it too much. Because I remember you thinking like maybe I've been mucking it up too much, and when you said that you were still seeing all those does, I was like, man, you just got to keep doing the right thing, and then finally you'll get lucky, which is the thing I kept having to tell myself, and it kind of worked out. But that's what you end up doing. You end up going to that corner where you thought you'd see the most does, right?
Yep, exactly. That's exactly what happened. I ended up going to that same spot, little ground blind. I had sat opening. I guess it was not opening day. I sat at the third day of gun season, and I just said, I'm going back there, and we'll see what happens. And man, I wasn't set up for more than 20, 30 minutes, and I saw a spike come out of the pines and go up over the lane, and there's a food plot in the neighbors. I was kind of set up between my the bedding on my property and then the food plot on the neighbors, almost in a straight line, and that's where that buck was headed. And a couple minutes later, I heard crunch, crunch, crunch coming back from the other way. It's like, oh, it's probably deer coming back. Something spooked them, and I look out and I just see tines. I go, oh, that's a shooter, and I just kind of went into autopilot mode. I couldn't even tell you everything. I don't even remember if I stopped him or what, but he stopped and I shot and I hit him a little back, and he kind of bounded into the kind of the first row of pines there and started walking down back in my direction and gave me a little spot where I could squeeze one more off at him, and I ended up dropping him right there, right in the pines, and didn't have any blood tracking to do, which was nice. So that was definitely the high. That's the first buck in Michigan I've killed in a number of years, and by far my best Michigan buck. And man, that like you said, can all change in a second and totally changed how my outlook was on my season.
Yeah. So so that all happened, so sometimes after you have like a conclusion like that where the season ends in one way or another, you're able to see other things that led up to that in a different way or more clearly. Mm-hmm. So when you look back on your season now after you had that happy ending, do you look back and say, oh, you know what, I did do some things right that I'm proud of? Or, even though it was tough all up until that moment, actually I was doing something that I can learn from. I guess what I'm trying to say is, when you look back on your season, what are you most proud of? Or what can you point to as being like, oh yeah, I was doing this right?
Right. Yeah, I think, that's a good question. And I've thought about that a little bit, and, not even just this season, but like for the last several years, just kind of really like, doing the right things and making sure that I'm preparing right and all that kind of stuff, because it can change in a second. And I think in past years, I may have been down, maybe not as hunted as much. I think the one thing that I did do right on that piece was, for the most part, being somewhat conservative on it and not hunting it in bad conditions, not being done with my access, making sure the deer were still comfortable around there, not walking all over it and checking trail cameras. It's so easy to want to go check trail cameras, but I was very cautious about that. Maybe too cautious. I wish I would maybe do it a little bit more, have a little bit more like, valuable recent information. But I haven't done that. So I think that's one thing that I've been very smart about, limiting my pressure on that property, to where I haven't ran a bunch of deer out of there.
Yeah. It certainly seemed to make a difference. I mean, the fact that you still had a bunch of deer that were hanging out there 3-4 days into gun season, that was key. That was key.
And daylight active, and that were daylight active too. I mean, that was like 3:30, I think, 3:45, something like that when I shot that deer.
Yeah,
so, I mean,
crazy
it was like
early.
Well before shooting light.
I remember getting the phone call from you. We talked like a few hours earlier, and then you're calling me again, and it's like 4 o'clock or something like that. And I'm like, man, this phone call, I remember seeing the phone, and I was like playing with the kids, and I saw the phone call come through, and I thought one of two things: either number one, he just shot a buck and he's calling me because he shot a buck, or number two, he was so like frustrated he decided to call off the hunt completely and turn around. I'm like,
that may have been me in the past. That may have been what I've done in the past. Like, screw it. I'm not going in there, wind's bad, and just bailed. But it's one of those things where, I've been smart about it. Maybe that wasn't the smartest spot to be sitting that day with that wind, but I think because I had been smart other times of the year, I think that ultimately benefited me for that particular hunt. Yeah.
It's funny how it all works out sometimes like that. Yeah, man, that's awesome. That's that
was definitely my high. And then I did have another really awesome hunt this past weekend. I ended up filling my public land antlerless tag on a fun little hunt with some buddies that we went and bumped around a little bit, a few bedding areas on some public and some real marshy stuff. We had waders on. We're wading through like waist deep stuff and getting to some of these little islands and pockets of bedding, and man, it was a lot of fun. We had a blast, and ended up getting lucky and filling my doe tag midday, the last day of muzzleloader season. So that was a lot of fun.
Did anybody else see any deer? Were you the only one to see those?
That was the only deer we saw the whole day.
Wow.
and it wasn't even any of our group that pushed that deer. We had just gotten set up, and they were we had like a boat, and so they took the boat around the other side. There's actually a couple of trappers that pulled up onto this little marshy area where there were some muskrat dens that they were going to set some traps on. They started, they got their axes out and hacking down some stuff. And I guess there was two. I only saw one, but they popped out right there. And man, it was crazy to see where they were bedded at. Like, you had to have water access to get in there to see them. And they were sitting there where they could see everything coming in. So it's pretty cool to see where they came from and how they were using that little piece at this point in the year when there's been so much pressure on them.
Did those trappers, did you talk to them afterwards? Did you scare the crap out of them after shooting a deer?
I probably did scare them, but I knew right where they were, and it wasn't in their direction. So it all worked out well. But we had ran into them at the boat launch, and we just kind of told them we were going to be out there, and they told us the same. And so we had just dropped off myself and one of the other guys right by them where they were, so they knew we were up in there. So it was all good, but I'm sure they needed to check their underwear after that.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's sweet, dude. Well, it must have been a chore getting her out of there. Did you have to float her out in the waders, or did you throw her in the canoe?
No, it was actually we put her right in the boat. We killed her in like the edge of the timber in the marsh, and just drug her we could drive the boat right up to that marshy stuff and loaded her in and got her out pretty easily. So it was a pretty good setup. But like you were talking about with Everett, like, man, have Wade see a couple of deer. I think he's gonna love it, man. I got that doe hanging in the garage right now, and every time someone goes in the garage, doe, just imitates like that doe, and then doe and then buck, and so he's all about it, and he'll touch the deer and check them out, and everything to him right now is no, and he gets like very animated about it, but like I think a lot of times his no means yes, and so he's just no. She's like, you want to touch it? No, but then he touches it, right? Like, so he's just like loving it, and he's I think he's gonna be very much like Everett and wanting to go on track jobs and do all that kind of stuff. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, it's the best. It is the best.
Yep.
Oh man. So let's wrap up with this. It's New Year's Eve when this is coming out. So let's lay out a New Year's resolution for each one of us. Okay. You have anything in mind? I had something that I was thinking about, so maybe I can go first and give you a second.
Go for it.
I think for me, my New Year's resolution is to practice what I preach. What I preached a lot this year, and that the past couple of years I've been trying to do better at, but I think next year it's going to be harder to do, which is I want to keep up the mentorship. I don't want it to be a couple of years and done type of thing. Even though the back 40 is going to be wrapping up next year, I want to make sure to find a way to fit that into my schedule. So got to hold me accountable next year, Josh. I need to mentor 2 hunters at least next year. So I know I'm going to do at least one on the back 40 through the program that we're putting together, but I need to do at least one more at a minimum, if not more. So that's going to be my New Year's resolution. Do that, help some more people out, share those experiences. I got to make sure I got to keep that up. So that's going to be mine. Yeah, that's my goal. I can say that, looking back on this past year, like last year, I think my resolution was to get better at handling, moment of truth shots, and then also to become more adaptable in my hunting style. And I sort of achieved those. I definitely got way more like adaptable, mobile. If I'm proud of myself for anything this past year, it was that I was more aggressive and mobile and quick to adapt to change than I've ever been by a long shot. So that year, or this year, that's the big thing I'm proud of. The moment of truth thing, I've had my win. I've had my good and my bad. I missed Tran, but I got a good shot with my bow at the drop time buck on the back 40, and then killed 2 deer with my gun now, which both went pretty decent. So I'm going to give myself a B on that and an A on being adaptable. And I need to get an A+ on mentorship next year. That's my end of year assessment there. What do you got?
Yeah, a couple resolutions for 2021. I got a few things I want to make sure I do. One, similar to you, is keep up the mentorship. I want to make sure I'm getting people out. And I've taken several people out over the last couple of years through our programs, and I actually have not sat with anybody who's killed a deer yet. So I'd really like to get a hunter their first year, being their personal mentor. So that would be awesome. So I need to make sure I'm doing the things I need to do there to make that happen. 2, I need to get my mental game right with my bow, whether that's changing some it's a release, maybe it's some other aspect of my shooting. I need to get that figured out and really dive into that and see what's going on there. And number 3, I'd like to kind of force myself to maybe make a few, kind of put together a little bit more of a habitat plan for this little chunk of property that I hunt, that little 40 acres. The landowner has said I can do some minor improvements to it. So I'd like to, kind of challenge myself to think outside of the box there, and not really having a ton of tools at my disposal in terms of like equipment and stuff like that. But, using a chainsaw, use some hand spreaders, do a little bit of maybe a small food plot, carving a small food plot, or do some sort of habitat improvement project down at that place and make it a little bit better on the habitat side of things.
Nice. I love it.
So, yeah.
Well, you got your work cut out for you, buddy.
I do. So,
well, that's what the end of the year is all about, is setting high hopes for the next year and then very quickly failing, right?
yeah.
2021 will get kicked off and right away I'll screw it up somehow.
Yeah, exactly. I need to write those things down now and put them like on my computer, or something, like a sticky note on my computer, so I'm seeing them every day. So I don't let myself fail on them.
Yep, that's a very good point, man. All right, well, let's wrap this up so people can get to their New Year's Eve festivities and send the year out hopefully on a really high note. It's good to end the year with you, buddy. It was good to begin it. It's good to end it.
Yep.
And
and let's hope 2021 is better for a number of reasons for everyone. So hopefully we get the year started off good.
I 100% agree with that. Thanks, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Now, a lot of you guys are familiar with the old hunting tradition of eating, some organ, the heart or a chunk of liver, off the first animal you kill. I had that when I was a little kid, and it was a big deal. Organ meats were always prized by frontier people who knew the importance of getting a lot of different minerals and nutrients. And, as often is the case, those guys were onto something, because organs are among the most nutrient-rich foods on the planet. And you can get the same benefits your ancestors craved via convenient daily capsules from Heart and Soil, made exclusively from regeneratively raised, grass-fed, and finished cattle. Heart and Soil's unique freeze-drying process means all those important nutrients are trapped in, ensuring you experience every one of the benefits of nature's superfood in a clean, convenient, taste-free capsule. Find out more at heartandsoil.co and make sure to use code MeatEater for 10% off your purchase. That's heartandsoil.co. Use the code MeatEater. You ever get that feeling you're stuck inside staring at screens and a primal urge kicks in? You crave wide open spaces, fresh air, the chance to connect with the land. Well, maybe it's time to find your own piece of the wild, but searching for property can be a maze. That's where land.com comes in. They got millions of listings across the country, from mountain ranches to hidden fishing holes. Their search tools are like a seasoned guide helping you narrow down what you want. Land.com isn't just about buying and selling. It's about finding a place to hunt, fish, explore, or simply sit by a campfire and listen to the crickets. So head over to land.com today to turn one day into today, because trust me, there's nothing quite like the feeling of standing on your own piece of earth.
All right, and now we're going to hop over to my conversation with Luke Thorkildsen over at Weatherby, talking late season firearms. All right, with me now on the line is Luke Thorkildsen. Luke, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks. Glad to be here, Mark.
I'm glad you are too. This is that time of year when a lot of people are busting out the rifle or shotgun or whatever it might be in their state and area and heading out for some fun late season hunts, around the holidays. I know for me, this is my favorite time of year to fill doe tags. So it seemed like we really needed to get an expert on that kind of stuff on here. So thanks for making this happen so close to the holidays too. I know it's a busy time of year for you.
It is a busy time of year. It's a crazy busy time generally for the firearms industry, but especially in this crazy year of 2020. So I'm happy to be on with you, though.
Yeah, that's for sure. So real quick before we dive into some of the kind of the information piece of this, can you just give us a little background as far as your story, how you got to doing what you're doing within the firearm industry and what exactly you do now today?
Yeah, great question. I'll probably start with where I'm at and work backwards a little bit, but I'm the Vice President of Sales, Marketing, and Product Development, and that also entails customer service here at Weatherby. And I've been here about 2.5 years. Super fortunate to get to move to the great state of Sheridan, Wyoming. If you don't know, Weatherby moved to Sheridan. They announced their move at the beginning of 2018. I was one of the first part of the new team hired, and we've built a new team here in Sheridan from about 18 team members that moved with the company from California to Sheridan, and we're about 100 strong now. And man, it's been a crazy wild ride. But my foray into the outdoor industry started quite a few years ago with Coleman, the outdoor company. I came up through the product management, product development side of things, and originally was in the construction products industry. And I just always loved being outside. I actually didn't grow up hunting. I just always had been a gearhead. I grew up outside. In college, I was a whitewater rafting guide and just loved being outdoors. And really, hunting became more of a passion just to spend more time outside. Really decided I wanted to work in an industry where I was able to play. And I got into Coleman, the outdoor company, went from Coleman to Bear Archery to Walther Arms, and now Walther to Weatherby. And man, I feel like I'm home here in Wyoming, and with Weatherby, it's been awesome.
Yeah, and it seems like at least from everything I've seen on social media, you have made up for lost time when it comes to hunting with a whole lot of pretty awesome hunting adventures. It looks like over recent years, huh?
I have. I've been crazy fortunate. This year has been one for the record books for me personally. I've never been to Alaska before, and got to go twice this year. Got to do a DIY caribou hunt up on the North Slope, and then went back a month later on a moose hunt, and was able to score both times. And that was getting started for the season. Able to fill pretty much all my tags in Wyoming this year, and a couple other states as well. So no complaints this year, that's for sure.
Yeah, the hunting for those of us who had good seasons, it made up for a weird 2020 in a lot of other ways. So, what about the whitetail side of things out there by you guys? I know that there's actually some pretty good deer in that neck of the woods. Isn't that the case?
Yeah, maybe not compared to some of the Midwest whitetails, but I think that there are some pretty good deer here. I think the best deer shot this year that we know about, I actually just got the Wyoming Outfitters Journal yesterday, and I believe the best whitetail shot in the state this year was like a 170. Nice. It's a good buck. A great buck. I'd be thrilled to shoot a 170, as most would. But right here where we're at in Sheridan, if you see a 150, you better be pumped to pull the trigger right away. We're right on the edge of whitetails really being a problem here because of the mule deer population. That's why everybody wants to see thrive. And as you know, the whitetail are quite a bit more aggressive and prolific than the mule deer. And so we've got some private land here that if you drive out on some roads any given evening, you could see, it's not an overestimate to say you could see thousands of whitetail deer in an evening on a field. Like it's ridiculous. So, we've kind of got an issue with private land versus public land and access, and how that all works out. But man, there's tons of deer. There's almost too many whitetails. It's becoming an issue for sure. CWD is creeping in too, and it's problematic.
Yeah, that's a good point. I was about to make light of it and talk about how I wouldn't mind that many deer, but you're right. In a more serious note, that yes, there are some serious management disease implications. So, I guess the point being that I probably need to go there and help out and try to call some of that population.
No doubt. buck hunting can be a little bit tricky because they like to hang out in the flatter areas, for whitetail anyway, where it's a lot of private land. But after buck season's over, it's pretty easy to get permission if you're just on a meat hunt and want to go shoot some does, and it's pretty easy to get access for doe patrol.
Yeah, which is a whole lot of fun. That's exactly what I'm on right now here in Michigan. It's doe patrol, and put my first one down a couple nights ago, and I guess it's got me thinking about this whole topic that I want to bring up with you, which was late season firearm hunting. I've done it with rifles and muzzleloaders and shotguns and everything in between, and regardless, it just seems like things seem to go haywire on occasion when stuff's really cold or when it's just inclement weather, snow, wind, frigid temperatures. It just seems like these variables can throw off a hunt, and nobody wants this thing they've worked all year towards to then get botched because of some weird equipment issue or something they hadn't thought about as far as how weather or whatever could impact things. So I was just kind of curious if this is something that you or anyone at Weatherby has, spent some time thinking about as far as special considerations to think about at this time of the year, whether it be in that, 0-degree weather or whether it be in really windy blizzards or anything that jumps to mind that you guys think about as far as that kind of situation when you're out there with a gun.
Yeah, there's a couple things. So I think there's actually two parts to it. There's in the field and then after. And I think they're both important, especially after. If you're in wind-driven rain or heavy snow, you're potentially going to get water into places in your rifle that it's not been before, and it's going to require a lot more meticulous cleaning, even if it's a Cerakoted. We're like, man, Cerakote's great corrosion protection, but man, even when you're applying Cerakote at the manufacturing level, it can be tough to get it in the smallest nooks and cranny inside the trigger group and all that. And when you start getting forced elements in there where they don't belong, and you put a gun away, or even worse, you leave it in a soft gun bag, like in your car for a couple weeks, you're asking for some corrosion problems. In the field, I think that just taking an extra level of precaution around how you're carrying your gun goes a really long way. We do a lot of backcountry hunting here in Wyoming. In the Midwest, that might look a little different, but just trying to cover up as much as you can. Most people want to cover their scope, obviously, but if you can cover up the action area and your trigger, where the trigger shoe comes out of the action, there's generally a pretty big gap in every rifle on the market. And if you get junk in there, even just moisture, you may not have the desired effect or the normal trigger feel that you're used to. I had one freeze up on me a couple years ago where I was crossing a creek and I kind of took a stumble and splashed some water up, didn't think anything of it, but then that water froze and actually didn't get up in my trigger group, but just like the way I was holding the rifle, the water hit the trigger. It's just like perfectly unfortunate, but the drip, imagine the rifle being vertical and the water dripping off the back of the trigger, and it like blocked, it froze and then blocked the trigger from being able to pull back far enough to actually break the sear. And so it almost rendered the rifle inert. And so you just got to be extra careful, I think, on how you're carrying your gun is really important.
What about the muzzle, the opening at the end of the barrel itself? A lot of people will put tape over the end of the muzzle. Is that something that you think is worth doing, or is there any worry with how that might impact anything downrange?
I am a big fan of covering the muzzle. I think it should be done. I do it no matter the weather. Again, backcountry hunting, whether it's pine needles or whatever else that might get in there. But if you get moisture in there, water doesn't compress. So if you get enough moisture inside the barrel, it could get dangerous, number one. But number two, even if it's not an actual safety concern, it could affect how your bullet's traveling. And so keeping your bore free of obstruction is I think is paramount.
So speaking about, shooting in those situations, so keeping them clean, that makes sense, keeping anything from getting down there. What about the impact of cold temperatures on ballistics or the impact on a bullet? I've read, I don't know much about this stuff myself, but I've read and seen some things about how ultra cold weather supposedly can have some impacts on that. Is that something that your average hunter needs to think about when it comes to this kind of thing?
I think every rifle is a little different. How your gun reacts to temperature is probably best not left to chance, right? So it may not be possible, but if it is possible, I think it's a great idea to experiment in different temperatures. If a massive cold front, first one of the season, is moving through and you haven't had a chance to go mess with your particular rifle, I think you need to be aware of your shot distance. I think out to 100 yards, you're probably not going to see a massive variation. But if you're talking about shots from 100 to 300 and beyond, then I think you really need to understand what's happening with your particular firearm. Even gun to gun, same model, you could see a slight variation. Every barrel is different. There's a lot of science behind it, but I like to say there's a lot of voodoo too. And I don't think even the best ballistic expert can understand the exact voodoo why one barrel that's come off the exact same production line, the exact same rifling, everything's the same, may react completely different. It's wild. So if given the opportunity to shoot or test your weapon in a sub-zero environment, it's not fun, but head to the range if you can to just see what's happening. I think it's wise to do that, especially if you're chasing a big buck and you don't want to leave anything to chance, right?
No, you don't. You definitely don't want that to be the thing that ruins the hunt there at the end. That's for sure. Now, what about another thing that might come up at this time of year, which is, when you get that nasty cold coming through, it's usually paired with a storm. So you've got the snow blowing and you've got some significant wind maybe, but you're a trooper and you're still out there. At what speed wind do you start worrying about wind deflection and or at what distances as far as your target being? Do you worry about that at 150 yards or?
Oh man,
is it close enough?
I almost would say that's a how long is a piece of string question, which is like you need so many more inputs to solve that ballistic solution. I mean, are we talking about like a 350 Legend where you're sending a pretty low BC bullet at a low velocity? Then you're going to see substantial wind variation versus like a Weatherby. If you're shooting our 6.5 300 with a high BC 140 grain bullet at almost 3,500 feet per second, I would say, don't worry about wind out to 200 yards, almost no matter what it's blowing. But if you're using a bigger, slower bullet, for sure you can see some deflection, even at 100 yards. Hopefully not enough that it's going to affect hitting the kill zone at 100 yards. But man, anything's possible depending on how stiff that wind is, and really the ballistic coefficient of the bullet and the velocity, I think, are the two most important factors there.
So really knowing your rifle and knowing what you're putting through it and exactly how it's going to react. I mean, like you said, so much of this comes down to the specifics. That something that I'm guilty of sometimes is wanting to stick to simple and not dive into the details when it comes to firearms, though, and really getting the very most out of your cartridge and your rifle. That's you really should go deep into it.
Yeah, I am not a professional sniper by any stretch of the imagination, but I do recommend to people that I think it's good to train or practice at nearly double the distance that you're comfortable harvesting an animal at. So if you're only going to feel comfortable shooting to 300 yards, I want to be, or have the guy I'm hunting with, I want them shooting at 600 and understanding what their gun's doing at 600 yards, because it just completely increases the confidence that you're going to have at 300.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And same principle, same theory applies to bow hunting lots of times, right? If you want to shoot a deer at 40 yards, you better be practicing at 60, 70, 80 yards. And then that 40-yard shot is a piece of cake.
Absolutely. That's exactly the same. Obviously magnified greatly by archery, but yeah, exactly the same principle for sure.
Yeah, that training and pushing yourself in training, just it's never a bad idea. It's never going to hurt you in the long run.
For sure.
Okay, so cold temperatures and winds certainly can impact you depending on your setup, even when you're hunting in whitetail country, shooting 100-yard shots or 200-yard shots. But what you alluded to this in the beginning, but a lot of making sure your gears in working order is taking care of it afterwards. You mentioned, don't put it in a soft case and leave it in your truck for 2 weeks or something like that. What are the things that somebody should do immediately like that? They come in from the hunt, and before they put it in the truck or the house or the case or whatever, is it as simple as just wipe it down with a dry rag, or is there anything else on their do this immediately checklist when they're coming in after a cold, snowy day?
Yeah, definitely. It depends on the rifle again. If it's a stainless steel rifle, or if it's Cerakoted, or if it's carbon steel that's been blued, it all looks a little bit differently. But I think at the core, it depends on the conditions. If you were out and it was windy and any form of moisture, snow or rain, you need to get the bolt out and do your absolute best to, at a minimum, clean throughout that action the best that you can and apply some oil so that there's some protection there. I like to leave mine out for a little while before I do that so that any moisture that was in there can dry a little bit, and then go through the cleaning process. You're not going to get a lot of oxidation in just a few minutes. We're in a super dry climate here in Wyoming, so keep that in mind. If you're down in Louisiana and you're like 98% humidity, it's probably not going to dry, and you need to take a little extra steps to get every bit of water out of that action area that you can. I mean, the way that the lugs of every rifle are going to fit with the mating lugs with the barrel or the action, you have got to make sure that you get all the water out of there, or you're going to run into problems down the road. And then the bore, I think, is super important. If you hadn't protected the muzzle end and you get any moisture down there, even on most Cerakoted rifles, there's still going to be a carbon steel barrel. There's no Cerakote inside the actual bore of the rifle. You need to be running some rods through there with a patch that's got some protective oil on there, or you're going to build up some corrosion that's going to affect your bullet performance down the road. Putting the gun away dry is critical. If you don't do that, you're asking yourself for problems. Yeah.
Now, what about going from different temperature zones? So by that, I mean, you're outside hunting and it's freezing cold. And then what if you were to bring it inside the house where it's warm? And then you worry about condensation and stuff like that. Do you recommend anything around that? Should you leave it outside for a while? Should you bring it in and then wait an hour and then dry off and everything like that? Is that something you guys think about?
I like to bring my gun inside and then, take care of my other stuff first, whether if there's meat involved or clothes, whatever. Try to get that stuff taken care of. It'd be a pretty extreme instance that condensation is going to build up on your gun like it would on your Coke or beer can, right? But if it was in the bed of your truck and it's sub-zero and you come in and it's 70 degrees and you got the fireplace going, yeah, it's possible, especially if it's in a soft case. It seems we get most of our service calls are on rifles that have been blued that get stored in a soft case where they come back in, any bit of moisture just kind of, it's like wrapping your barrel in a wet rag. It's like, it makes it worse. You get these oxidation issues in a beautiful blued rifle. It's brutal. So I say get it out of the soft case as quick as you can. If there's any way to get some air circulation on it to bring it up to kind of room temp, then clean it and then store it.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. And then I guess the final thing then is we're doing that. We've filled our doe tags or our last buck tag. We've put a couple deer in the freezer. The season ends. I know a lot of folks will just shelf the gun I've been guilty of this in past years. I shelf it and then I kind of forget about it because I've moved on to all these other things. And then 6 months passes by or 10 months passes by, and then it's September and I'm thinking, I got a gun hunt coming up soon. I better get that out. And then I realize that I didn't do my end of year maintenance on it, or I didn't do something quite right. And there's some rust or something goes wrong. I am guilty of that. I admit it. And I hate myself for that.
Right.
Can you walk me through what the correct postseason process would be as far as cleaning, storage, any maintenance related thing to make sure that we are doing this 100% right?
If so, I would just say there's a precursor to this question. If the last shot that you fired hit where you wanted it to hit, then you're confident in your setup. Then go through, just like I said before, get everything dried up, cleaned up, and then I'd say apply a pretty liberal amount of oil into the bore of the barrel, run a patch or two through there so it's got a protective coating, be a little more liberal in that bolt and action mating surfaces so that you're good. You can store that thing for years if need be. Now, if you weren't confident in the last trigger pull, if the bullet was like, man, I don't know that impacted where it was supposed to impact, I recommend you go and get that sorted before you put the gun away for the season, because you don't know. Hopefully you remember to get your gun out before next season and get it dialed again. But I like to put it away with confidence so that if a buddy calls like, man, I'm having a coyote problem, you want to come shoot some coyotes with me? Like, I don't have to worry about anything. Like, I know I'm confident in the condition of the gun when it's put away. Yeah,
that's a good forward-thinking move that I will aspire to be on top of it as well as you are, Luke. I like that. That's good. Okay, so get it all taken care of in that kind of way, and then put it in the safe and call it good, huh?
That's it. Yeah. Like I said, I like to know the condition of every firearm that I've got so that whether we're talking about when it hits the fan type of moment, or if we're talking about an impromptu hunt or opportunity to go to a shoot, that I know with beyond a shadow of a doubt that I could pick up any rifle in my safe and it's dialed and ready to roll. And the next time I pull the trigger, I know where that bullet's going to go. Yeah. I think that's important.
Yeah, well, it's so in line with almost everything else with deer hunting. It comes down to the details and executing on all the little things you need to do. And if you pay attention to those little things and you follow through on them, whether it be properly taking care of the gun while you're out there in the field, or maintaining it afterwards, or double checking your zero before the end of the year, all that stuff adds up when, like you alluded to in the beginning, there's a lot of stuff we can't control. So if this is one thing we can, you gotta check that box.
You have to. I think having confidence in your tools, all of them, is just so critical. I did one hunt this year where I took a gun that I hadn't had a lot of trigger time, and I had a good buck just past what I was comfortable with that rifle, because I wasn't 1,000% confident in my setup. It was, as a marketing side at Weatherby, I get to do some cool events, and when I was invited on this hunt, I had to take a firearm that I hadn't hunted with yet, and with a round I wasn't familiar with, and I got a little bit of range time, but I didn't have it dialed. If I had the gun I'd been hunting with all season with me, I would have shot a better buck than I ended up shooting, because I just wasn't confident to pull the trigger at the distance when I encountered this great whitetail. I still got a good one, but it bothered me so much that I wasn't 1,000% confident in my setup that I was like, I'm not doing it like this again. I've got to make sure that I'm fully confident in the tool that I have, because everything else worked out. I could have executed in my shooting ability, but I wasn't confident in my tool, and that just irked me to no end.
Yeah, that one will linger. I know how that is. Well, Luke, this is really helpful stuff, and a perfect way for us to wrap up the year. I think there's a lot of people that'll be putting this kind of stuff into play over the next few weeks. So thank you for that. And if people want to either follow along with anything you've got going on, or Weatherby in general, is there anywhere online they can connect or learn more?
You bet. Weatherby Inc. on Instagram, weatherby.com. Personally, Luke Tork on Instagram, and we're happy to have people come and follow and see what we got going on. I think as Weatherby, we do a pretty good job with a personal connection to the brand. Adam Weatherby responds to a ton of our Instagram messages, and if you've got any questions, message us there. Send us an email to marketing@weatherby.com. Whatever we can do, we're accessible and try to respond to everyone.
That's awesome. I'll add another plug. Adam was on one of the recent seasons of the Meat Eater TV show, and my 2-year-old has been really into watching Meat Eater on Netflix over the last couple months, and that episode that Adam was on, the mule deer hunt, is one of his favorites. So we frequently will try to play out that hunt, and Adam seeing that buck and going in after him, and so my son Everett will go running down the hill and then get his fake gun up, and then say, I see antlers. So
awesome.
Go watch that one.
That is a good one. That one's a 2-parter too, I think, if I remember right, and it ends in a crazy fashion with a bit of a old-fashioned drive.
Yep. Yeah, they made for some interesting hunts. It's always an adventure with Steve and Yanni and crew. So it worked out well for them. They put some nice bucks on the ground.
No doubt. And I was pretty fortunate back in October to have Steve and Yanni host them down here in Wyoming on an antelope hunt with surprise guest Luke Combs, which was an amazing experience. Really cool trip.
Yeah, I've heard from at least Giannis that was a really good time. You guys had an enjoyable hunt, a successful hunt, it looked like.
Yeah, we did, and I believe that'll be on the next year's Netflix episodes, but we did. We had a blast. Luke Combs was awesome. Better than expected. You never know what you're going to get with some of those, quote unquote celebrities, right? But he was about as normal a guy as you could get that has a fleet of tour buses. You know what I mean?
You're right. Yeah, like you said, that could be, you just never quite know where that could go. So I'm glad it worked out. I was talking to, I remember sitting in the grocery store parking lot talking to Giannis on the phone just before that hunt, and he expressed the same thing. He's like, I hope this works out, but you just
you just don't know.
We're gonna ride it out and see what happens.
It was a good time.
All right. Well, Luke, I'll let you get back to all the end of year craziness, but thank you again. And I hope one of these days I'll be able to make it out there to Wyoming and see the headquarters and everything, because I've heard it's pretty incredible.
Thanks, Mark. You're welcome anytime.
All right, and that's a wrap. Thank you again for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed this one. A little bit of story time, a little bit of info. I like that mix. That's usually the kind of mix we try to hit. We just took 2 different people to do it today, but hope you enjoyed it. Have a great New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, first couple weeks of the year, whatever it might be. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, stay wired to hunt.
I'm sure a lot of you guys remember the old ceremonial hunting tradition of eating the heart out of the first animal you kill. Meat from those organs are among the most nutrient-rich foods on the planet. You can get those same benefits your ancestors craved via convenient daily capsules from Heart and Soil. Find out more at heartandsoil.co. And remember, use code MeatEater for 10% off your purchase.
Outdoor adventure won't wait for engine problems. Things like hard starts, rough performance, and lost fuel economy are often caused by fuel gum and varnish buildup. Seafoam can help your engine run better and last longer. You simply pour a can into your gas tank. Hunters and anglers rely on Seafoam to keep their engines running the way it should the entire season. So pick up a can of Seafoam today at your local auto parts store or visit seafoamworks.com to learn more.